Welcome back to the Truth About Women's Hormone Summit, where we discuss the myths and truths around what truly makes women thrive. I'm Dr. Morgan Button, women's functional medicine specialist, and it's such a pleasure to welcome today's amazing guest. She's been successfully helping premenopausal and menopausal women regain and maintain their health since 1995. She's a professional speaker, radio personality, fitness expert, former host of The Healthier Way with Dr. Labbe. She's also the founder of ThyroSisters and creator of the science-based Thyroid MVP program, which is a comprehensive, all-inclusive curriculum for hormonally challenged women. And she's also the author of Amazon's #1 bestseller, Thyroid and Menopause Madness: Why You Feel So Lousy and What You Can Do About It. And it's not just menopause, it's your thyroid. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Joni Labbe.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. So you have spent the last couple decades trying to spread the word about something that has been affecting so many people in our country and seems to be growing every day. So what is it that you've been helping women with?
Well, I call it the invisible disease. It's called Hashimotos, and it's the reason that most people have hypothyroid. And it's so interesting because many people are taking low thyroid medication. They're not feeling any better. And the reason is because Hashimoto's is an autoimmune disease, meaning it's attacking not only the thyroid, but usually the digestive tract, the adrenal glands, and the liver. And in reality, there are 22 different biochemical pathways that modulate your thyroid. And so thyroid medication helps in one out of those 22 biochemical pathways. And this is my passion because I suffer with Hashimoto's back in the day and have it in remission, and took Synthroid for about 20 years before I ran labs on myself and found out, oh my gosh, I have this thing called Hashimoto's, which sounds like sushi, but in reality is the name of the doctor in the early 40s that actually won a Nobel laureate for his discovery of this autoimmune. So that's what caused me to lean into all of this and find out why so often, and with many of my clients, is that you're doing everything right. You're taking your thyroid, and yet you don't see any results. You don't feel any different.
Right.
So.
It's such a huge misconception that there are two kinds of thyroid issues. There's hyper and hypo, and that's it, which is totally not true. Like you said, there's 22 possible ways, and I think there's probably even more than that we're aware of. So why is this becoming such a rampant issue in America specifically?
Well, one of the big reasons is that it's really not being tested for in the regular medical model, because one is going to be given thyroid medication regardless of if it's Hashimoto's or hypothyroid. So many people are walking out of the doctor's office feeling crummy, but are being told, you're fine. You know, your lab shows that you're fine. And which brings up an important point. Not only are not enough labs being run so we can get to the root cause of the problem, secondarily, the reference ranges that your markers are being compared to have been expanded with the advent of managed care. So we want to you would think it would be some big mystery to find out, do I have Hashimoto's or not? In reality, it's a marker. It's called a TPO antibody. And I like to run another one called a TGB antibody. So those two antibodies can tell us definitively if you have Hashimoto's or not, which opens up a whole new conversation than what I call just plain vanilla hypothyroid. So that brings in the world of why and root causes, so we can identify that and work with that where you feel like you've been transformed, that there's you can see on lab work, which is usually run in about 4 to 6 months. And all along, I know in our practice, we follow along, we journey with the client. I like to talk to my clients every 5 to 6 weeks. And as they're changing, not perfection, but progress, every 4 to 6 weeks, we pivot depending on what's being reported. I'm better, I hit a snag here, this could be a little worse. This is how we heal. So we want to see that progress, not wait and see and we'll recheck it in 6 months.
Yeah, exactly. And you said you brought up a really good point earlier that this is an autoimmune condition. So we're not going to treat this like it's an endocrine condition, even though it's manifesting in the endocrine system. This is an immune condition. So we need to make sure that our immune system is supported and healthy. So what is one really big way that we can really support our immune system?
Well, one big way is in all autoimmunes, whether we're talking about autoimmune Hashimoto's, lupus, MS, RA, we have two sides to our immune system. And when we have an autoimmune, often one side goes high and the other stays the same. And we want to dampen the overactive side of that immune system. So it's not just enough to find out, oh, I have Hashimoto's or lupus or whatever the autoimmune may be. We need to find out what is the high, which side of the immune system has gone high. And so we can test for that via blood work. In functional medicine, which you and I are talking about, we have, through the wonderful Dr. Datis Karazian, who was a pioneer in this, he has ways of which we implement to find out through food and elimination provocation of certain foods to determine if one is Th1 or Th2 dominant. But so in approaching an autoimmune, you might be saying, oh, how would I know if I have an autoimmune or not? And so, there's some insidious, seemingly unrelated symptoms that would help you to understand and talk with your healthcare provider. One of the big things is foggy brain. In fact, I like to use an acronym called FINISHED. A lot of my clients go, oh, I just feel like I'm finished. And I like that word because you're not finished. And yet finished also denotes I'm done with this. I'm tired of feeling this way. Foggy brain, F stands for foggy brain. I in the word finish stands for insomnia. Can't get to sleep, can't stay asleep. Thing that we hear a lot is no libido, which is the N in the word finished. And that's important to life. And that even transcends over to things that I just don't have pleasure in, things that I used to enjoy, like going to the movies or a football game or, just everyday life. I feel just flat and indifferent about it. The next big thing is inability to lose weight, even on a low-calorie diet. And I have Hashimoto's, as I mentioned, and it's frustrating. I'm sure, some of your viewers have gone to the gym with their friends and they all lost 10 pounds in the boot camp and you lost 2. So I've been there. I speak from, painful experience. But the next big thing is stomach issues, bloating, um, irritable bowel, maybe SIBO, small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. And we really want to hone in on this part, is the stomach and the gut issues. The gut taking the intestinal tract, stomach, because so many people contend with constipation, diarrhea, and the largest nerve in your body goes from your digestive tract to the frontal part of your brain, the pituitary, in the limbic system, next door to the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland produces TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. And so there's a huge correlation, and this is one of the 22 different pathways. We have a saying in functional health that we clear up the digestive tract and the brain clears up. So that boosts the immune system, that helps with anemia, that helps with inflammation, which is huge. You can be on sugar-free, gluten-free, soy-free, dairy-free diet, and yet if those particles are leaving your gut, going into the bloodstream, your body, in an effort to serve you, goes, whoa, what's this? And starts inflaming, operative word, against these things. So that's one of the reasons why you're doing everything right. You're on a great way of life. I don't even like to call it diets. And yet nothing is happening. So we want to really seam up those digestive issues. And leaky gut is the term that maybe a lot of people have heard, literally where the tight junctures have opened up. And so we want to re-seam that up. And we're talking about different symptoms that seem unrelated, but are huge in our hypothyroid world. So that's stomach issues. That's the S in the word finished. Hair loss. Hair loss, we used to talk about the lateral part of the eyebrows being an issue, but hair everywhere being an issue. That male pattern baldness, even on a female. The biggest thing that I hear is exhaustion, fatigue. I either sleep 12 hours a night, wake up tired, or just that fatigue issue, and or I didn't sleep and I'm wired and tired, but I can't get to sleep. And then the last thing is dry hair, dry skin, dry everywhere. So you ladies will understand. And it's part of the hypothyroid Hashimoto's conundrum. And it's why I call it the invisible disease, because sometimes we don't correlate, oh, I can't sleep with my thyroid, or I'm sleeping too much. So
you touched on the gut. So having stomach issues or having constipation, specifically with low functioning thyroid. When the thyroid's sluggish, kind of everything's sluggish, because pretty much every single cell in your body needs thyroid hormone, healthy amounts of thyroid hormone on it. So that's why things like your skin get dry, your hair falls out, feel foggy brained, your GI tract slows way down.
yes.
So I'd love for you to go a little bit more in depth on the gut. So you mentioned leaky gut. So how does this really work? Like leaky gut, if you say that to a layperson, they might think like, oh no, this is a big issue. My gut is pouring out into my bloodstream, or
Yes.
we think that this is something that's kind of out of our control, but it's absolutely not. So how exactly does this play a role in Hashimoto's and autoimmune conditions? And then what certain foods should we avoid if we do have thyroid conditions?
Well, on this leaky gut, it's the lining of the digestive tract is made up of tight junctures. And over time, due to various things, antibiotic overuse, unbeknownst to you, a food allergen, or all of us, whether we have celiacs or not, have a tendency towards genetically modified food is hard to digest. And so these tight junctures open up, and these particles literally go into the bloodstream. And so it's every time one eats, there's this inflammation, which is the operative word, going on. And how that pertains to low thyroid is this actual vagus or vagal nerve that goes to the limbic system. That's why oftentimes when we're on a cleanse and we're repairing the digestive tract, we can feel a little bit more emotional and sensitive or angry. And because the limbic system helps, that's where our emotions are. That's why it's so important if you are on a cleanse or you're on a repair. And the studies say it takes a good 4 to 6 months to repair the digestive tract, to be kind to yourself and to give yourself, be that kind parent, and take things with a grain of salt. Just be very patient with yourself, because this is a process that's going to take some time, but it's going to be so worth it. And it doesn't, there's old adage, all good things take time. And but in this case, it's really true, and you're heading in the right direction. So there is progress there. But the gut, it supports our immune system. If it turns out, I like to run an extensive lab panel, and we check for these 22 different things, and many of them originate in the digestive tract. For example, from the lab work, we can tell if you have a low-grade chronic infection. And if so, is it viral, bacterial, parasitic? And so one could be walking around with a chronic low-grade infection. It doesn't take you off your day. You're not living in the bathroom, but that needs to be addressed, and that usually is in the gut. So that's a huge part as to why we usually start there. We can clear up low-grade infections, candida overgrowth, yeast, decrease inflammation, get rid of this irritable bowel syndrome, constipation, diarrhea. We can tell if there's a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. We can even test for celiacs. I'm sure you've found too, many people are adults and realize later in life that they were born with celiacs, the inability to break down the proteins in wheat, rye, oats, barley, white flour. But we were talking earlier, and they really don't know what causes an autoimmune such as Hashimoto's, but there's a few things I'd like that contribute, that go along with this digestive tract and the gut. And we're talking a lot about inflammation, and inflammation from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet. That's the big secret behind why one can't lose weight on a low-calorie diet. It's not that you're doing anything wrong usually. It's that the doggone inflammation coming mostly from the digestive tract and other areas. So we want to, due to leaky gut, I will just catch-all term, unbeknownst to you, you have another autoimmune, and now we can test for this. And we can send you out into your hometown to a LabCorp, largest lab in the country. We can find out. We don't have to speculate. And so we can, because the studies say if you have one autoimmune, chances are you have another. And The other big thing that causes these autoimmunes is chronic anemia. And that causes this fatigue. And so, and then the environment can be a big issue, especially with all this weather change, hurricanes. And, I talk to different people in different parts of the country, and it seems that these symptoms and issues flare up after there's been a huge, like in Florida, hurricanes, and Houston, and now we've got this big ice thing in Texas. So environment, global like that, or even just maybe the neighbor has just decided to use a different type of fertilizer, and you breathe that in unbeknownst. And so that can cause a trigger. And then, of course, the last thing is genetics. And so these are the things that contribute to autoimmune, but we don't have to be a slave to our genetics. You had a great saying about the gun.
Genetics load the gun, environment pulls the trigger.
I love that. Yeah, it's so true. It gives you a sense of self-reliance and self-governing, because we all probably have certain genes that we wish we didn't have, but they don't have to manifest. We don't have to pull the trigger on them, just through lifestyle changes. So that's some of the reasons why people have Hashimotos or autoimmune. So
yeah, so the gut is critically important, and
so critical.
and I think, one of the most eye-opening things that I always teach my patients is that most of our immune system lies in our gut. Like, it's not just, we aren't just what we eat, we're what we digest and absorb and utilize, but we're also needing to support our immune system through our GI tract. It's not just this, ubiquitous system that's all over the place. It is central to our GI tract. So it's very intimately connected there. So if we're having any kind of inflammation or GI issues, our immune system is going to be compromised. And that's what sets us up for any, and then say we have a traumatic event, and that can just kick us into an autoimmune condition, because we didn't set ourselves up for success, for resilience when something like that comes along. So I don't mean to scare anyone by saying that, but I want to give people hope that they can actually prevent and control disease so much by what we're putting in our bodies. And what you said about the vagus nerve is, that nerve is the biggest nerve in the body, and 90% of those neurons that are within that nerve go from the gut to the brain. So that message alone should show you how important the gut is. It is telling the brain what to do. The brain is the biggest gland in the body, but the gut is in control of that. So really emphasizing, if you take one thing away from what Dr. Joni is saying today, is take care of your gut and everything else just kind of falls into place. So what are some of the foods that we should focus on? So I'm big on focusing on the good things. What are some of the foods we can focus on eating that are really good and nourishing for any kind of thyroid condition, and what should we stay away from?
Well, a big avocados, organic, pesticide-free avocados are high in glutathione. Glutathione is the largest antioxidant that normally our Krebs cycle makes and protects us. And oftentimes with autoimmune or hypothyroid, we don't produce enough glutathione. And back in the day, we'd send you to the doctors, you'd have to have an IV. It was expensive and time consuming. Now we're able to, they're in formula, supplements, and liposomal delivery systems, meaning creams or under the tongue, so that they're highly absorbable. But foods that are high in glutathione every day, so that would be avocados are known to be the highest, as well as walnuts, Brazil nuts, which are some other foods. Raw nuts are great for those of us that are gluten-free. It's a great snack. The good omegas in the nuts are fabulous. We need zinc and selenium and iodine to convert T4 to T3. So foods high in those three minerals are great. A little caveat, we'd like to rule out that you don't have Hashimotos before we start you on anything iodine. And what we do is for 90 days, high selenium, not too high, usually 250 micrograms a day. And we can get that through food, especially if we know those nuts came from soil that's rich. But foods high in zinc are oysters, if you know that seafood doesn't bother you. Kefir, chicken, dark chocolate. Valentine's was just recently, and so you probably got a good of zinc from that. I mentioned omegas earlier. If you know that eggs do not offend your system, of course, pasteurized eggs that have been out, they've been on pastures. We're literally on the crate, or if you buy them from the farmer's market, they've been out on the pastures, nothing caged. So lamb is high in glutathione. So of the foods to eat, just when you're trying to get a lot of glutathione, which will dampen down either side of the overactive side of an immune system. So whatever name that immune system is, glutathione is a great friend of yours. And just a few supplements on that. There's something called NAC, N-A-C, N-acetylcysteine. That is a precursor to glutathione. So some of your viewers may have taken NAC in the past. Phenomenal. It also helps with breathing and the lungs. And many people that have had a history of asthma love NAC. It circulates oxygen, so which is what iron does. So if you're low in iron, you're going to like N-acetylcysteine or NAC. So the things food-wise to stay away from, of course, as Hashi kids, as I call us, we have to stay away from gluten. It's not even negotiable. Why? Because there's this thing called molecular mimicry. It means that your body says, I'm not making T3 or T4 or progesterone or cortisol because you have plenty of it. When in reality, it's the doggone gluten mimicking your sex hormones, your thyroid hormones, your stress hormones. And that's the biggest reason we want to, not even, when I first went gluten-free, I fooled around with it a little bit. And there was a study done, which keeps me faithful, and I can send that to you or your viewers. They took over 1,000 women, I don't know why women, and each participant ran labs on them, found out they had inflammation of some sort, not necessarily an autoimmune. In fact, they wanted to vet out as much autoimmune. Nobody had celiacs in this group. And so this was a 2-year study. And they gave the participants one crouton. And they found that it took on average 7 months for the inflammation to come down, the immune system to come up, the thyroid markers to come into play. Or to say it a different way, you are going to feel so much better 7 months from now if you go gluten-free now. And be kind to yourself, because going off gluten is like literally, it takes the same biochemical pathway as an opiate. So here again, you got to be kind to yourself. You're going off an opiate. So
there's morphine like compounds in both gluten and dairy. So when you get off them, it's almost like you're withdrawing from a drug, because you kind of are. They're actually, the word morphine is in there. So there's caseomorphins in dairy, and there's gluteomorphins in wheat. So like, of
Yes,
course, everybody's gonna love lasagna and macaroni and cheese and pizza. They're drug-like substances.
that's right. Comfort
So yeah,
food.
they're gonna make you feel really good because they have morphine-like compounds in them. So that keep that in mind when you're coming off them. I definitely felt that when I stopped eating both of them, but I can also tell you that the life I live now and how I feel now compared to when I was eating those foods is totally different from
Isn't
the top of
it?
my head to the tip of my toes. Yeah.
Oh, same here, Dr. Morgan. I, I, maybe you would agree with me. You couldn't put it, well, you could put a gun at my head if it meant that, but I really, really never want that stuff. And that's such a good feeling for people that are in that process of going off of it, is that someday, and it won't take long, you are going to just cognitive thinking and hair growing back and inflammation down and sleeping better. And well, maybe my marriage isn't that bad. Just perspective, a sense of optimism, things like that. Um, so the biggies are gluten for sure. And then, of course, as you mentioned, dairy, sugar, soy. We've heard this before, and excess alcohol. But stand with you on this, please. If nothing else, go off the gluten and the dairy. And good point about the morphine. It has you in its claws, and just you don't want anything dictating your life or governing
Right.
you.
Right.
You
Now
know?
it just looks like pain and brain fog and hangovers, and it just doesn't, it's not
Yeah.
appealing to me anymore, and I don't miss it. And it's not a fad. Like, going gluten free is not a fad. It's nothing to roll your eyes at. There's plenty of research that shows that it's just not suitable for the human body to digest, and it has a direct impact on your gut. It activates zonulin, which is a compound, a naturally occurring compound that opens up those tight junctions that Dr. Joni was talking about. And it also activates that same chemical at the blood-brain barrier. So that's why we get that brain fog, and anxiety and depressive type
Mhm.
symptoms when we do eat a grain-full diet. So Dr. Joni, you've been so awesome. I have one
Oh,
last question for you today.
sure,
If
sure.
you could tell every woman on this planet one thing and she would commit it to memory, what would that one thing be?
Well, I've never met a weak woman. Have you?
Nope.
I mean, regardless of her background, it doesn't matter location, nothing, it doesn't matter. I think most of us are going to do what it takes to feel like ourselves again. And I guess the one word would be capable. You're more capable than you think. You're stronger than you think. You just haven't felt well in a long time, and you didn't know. You didn't know that uh, gluten and dairy was slugging you like this. And if you were sucked with, menopause hormones, or you're perimenopausal, that's a stress, that's an environmental stress that you spoke about. Well, it's a hormonal stress, but it here again, it's a life-changing thing. So I would just encourage all of your viewers to to remember how capable you are, and you're valuable, and you have gifts and talents. And we in this world, especially now, really need those gifts and talents, not just your family, but your community. All of us, we need you healthy and alive. And most women are the cornerstone of their family unit or their business and community. So that would be it. You're capable.
Beautiful.
Mm.
Thank you so much, Dr. Joni. Thank you again for sharing all
Oh,
your energy and wisdom with me
uh,
and our listeners today.
my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Look
It's
forward
been
to
a
talking to
joy.
you soon.
Likewise, and everyone who's listening, make sure you stay tuned for tomorrow's episode.